Hoops 7 proudly brings to you Basketball Hustle.
Ellis fumbled the ball. 2 on the shot clock. Goes up a prayer. Yes! As he was falling to the ground, it's a 3. He shot it literally from the hip.
Definitely a highlight.
Here come the Billikens. 4 on 2. McCall. Ellis. Left corner. Bang! From way down under. Cody Ellis. Reddick brings low out away from the basket. Stolen away by Cody Ellis. One man to beat. To the hole. He's fouled. Layup. Good. Whistle foul. Count the basket.
Ellis for the reverse. Through fingertips. What a move. Ellis drops in a bomb.
I love seeing Cody Ellis coming out feeling good.
Ellis. Cody Ellis. Ellis. Pull-up jumper. Cody Ellis. Bang. Cody Ellis, can he stand and deliver? Cody Ellis.
Now it's time for another episode of Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle.
Hello and welcome. Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle for another week. I'm back with my regular co-host, and boy, is there plenty going on in the world of the NBL. There's some interesting things we're seeing in games, and hopefully we don't have too many delay of games during this podcast, Cody. That's something that's attracting a lot of attention across the league. We're seeing some teams do some interesting things at the end of games, which we'll talk about. We've seen some birthday boys hit some match-winning shots. The New Zealand Breakers just keep winning and just keep clamping down teams. The Perth Wildcats didn't respond to Matty Knight's challenges last week and are still struggling. We saw 3 overtime periods across round 5 in the NBL. We'll go through our awards with the Galen, the Player of the Year and the Damo Award here on Hoops 7's Basketball Hustle for this week. I'm Chris Pike, but I'm back with Cody Ellis, my co-host, and good to be with you, Cody, and boy, oh boy, is there plenty to get through.
Oh, there sure is. Good to be back, man. Appreciate Maddie for taking my place last week. Man, what a round of basketball it was this weekend.
It sure was. It's almost difficult to know where to start. And I'm tempted to start on the thing that probably grabbed your attention the most, especially when it started to get out of control on Saturday night, Cody. Adam Ford was tongue-in-cheek when he started his press conference on the weekend, saying that there'll be no delay of games. He'll be handing out infringements for anybody that doesn't help his press conference move along smoothly.
Yep.
It's probably not the ideal way to start, but let's get it off our chest, Cody.
Yep.
Has the officiating to enforce these delay of game warnings gone a little bit too far?
Oh, it's gone too far and then some, mate. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, couldn't tell you another league around the world that, you know, having a shot after the whistle, basically straight after the whistle, is a delay of game.
Sometimes it's not that far off actually being continuation.
Well, exactly.
That's how close some of these shots are.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just gotten to a ridiculous point. And it delays the game more than the actual shot itself does.
Yeah.
I don't see why, especially having a shot after a whistle, is a delay of game, because most of the time the ref has to go to the bench, you know, signal whose foul it is on and all that sort of stuff. By the time they get back, the ball's there, ready to play, even if a player has taken a shot. It's gotten way out of hand, and it's just it's very frustrating. And I know we're not the Lone Rangers here, because it's it's been the talk of the town over the past couple of weeks.
If you were playing and this is happening, how frustrating would it be, even if you're on the opposition team? Because, like you said, what the players are doing isn't necessarily delaying the game, but then the referee makes this call, and like you said, he goes and talks to the bench, and they have to, you know, record the foul, and then you actually have to stop the game to go and take the foul shot, and then you come back to the sideline and take the ball out of bounds. I mean, if you're playing, how frustrating would it be?
Oh, very frustrating. And it's just a lot, you know, it's just one extra thing that the refs have to worry about. They've got enough on their plate, they don't need to worry about that sort of stuff. I get it if you're throwing it full court to the other end, like that's different. But these even just little shots inside the keyway become a delay of game, and it's just, like I said, it's gotten way out of hand, and I think they need to reel back on it real quick.
What do you think their aim was in doing it in the first place? Did they have the right intentions and they're just doing it wrong, or what do you think?
Honestly, I have no idea. That has never sparked me as a point in the game where it's delayed it by any stretch of the imagination.
It's not.
So yeah, I have zero idea. I'm not sure what their thought process was. I'm not sure what they were trying to stop, but I mean, all they've done is a bit of a negative, I think.
You're right. It doesn't ever feel like something that has delayed a game, like the things that they are clamping down on. Have you ever played in a game where you have felt like the opposition does something like take an extra shot or doesn't give the ball straight back to you after a basket or something like that to delay a game? Or is it something that just didn't really need to be looked at?
Not after a whistle like that, no. Like, I understand not touching it after a bucket. I get that. Yeah. You know, even that's become... very strong.
Well, because sometimes it just falls into your hand.
Well, it does. And the amount of times that it falls into your hand and you kind of drop it away, thinking, pleading not guilty. And it's just, So even that's gotten a bit too strict, but I understand that one. The shots, a second after the whistle has just gotten absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. All right. We got that off our chest, Cody. So let's get to some other things that might have frustrated you before we get to some more positive things out of the weekend, because it was a hell of a weekend of basketball. We talked about this when you came on board the show last season, Cody. If a team is either 1 point behind or 2 points behind or even equal, why in this modern game do they seem to feel like they need to shoot a three-pointer no matter the score at the end of a game?
It seems to be the thing, doesn't it? And, we harped on it 3 or 4 or 5 even episodes last year where it just kept happening. 1 point down, take a three to win it, I do sometimes understand being 2 point down and going for the win. That one I understand, right? But 1 point game, there's no reason you should take a three unless there is 9 guys in the keyway and one person wide open on the three. Other than that, there's no way you should be shooting a three. It's just, it's ridiculous.
Well, why do you think the Wildcats went for that three-pointer? Bryce Cotton... He got a good drive at the end of that game against the South East Melbourne Phoenix on Friday night. Probably would have finished the layup if he tried to. Why do you feel like he dished it out to Luke Travers and then obviously Travers passed it on to Todd Blanchfield?
I couldn't tell you. I think, especially this year, Bryce has looked to be a bit more of a distributor than in the past, which I think is great because, they struggle with their ball movement right now. So I think that to having your main guy, your main scorer, being that distributor, I think is probably good for them. But at that point in the game, he got 2 feet in the paint, had his defender kind of on his side, help side under the rim. All he needs to do is shoot his little teardrop in there and that's game over because that goes down. 99% of the time, that is going down.
And if he doesn't, it's probably a pretty good chance he gets fouled.
Exactly. And, look, kick out to Travers, who was... he was open, had a defender closing out on him, kicking it to Toddy, who, if you had a choice between those two to shoot it, you'd probably pick Todd to shoot it.
Yeah, it was a good look in the end.
It was. Yeah. It was an open look from a guy that has made a living, shooting that shot. But I still just, I am baffled at why Bryce didn't just shoot that. That's what he's paid to do. Especially end of the game, you're the guy. You have to be the guy. You have to step up. You have to make it. You miss it, that's fine. Everyone on the team knows that is your time to shine. Sure. So he's proved it so many times. He's done it with big plays so many times throughout his career in the NBL. And I'm still at a bit of a loss at why he didn't shoot that one.
Another thing I'm at a loss about still, Cody, at the end of the game, regulation time between the Hawks and Melbourne United on Saturday night. 5 seconds left on the clock. Melbourne inbounds the ball and for some reason feel like they don't need to get a shot off and they dribble out the time, dribble out the last 5 seconds, don't get a shot off, and it's still in the backcourt between Radden Mays and Dave Barlow. Is that just a mistake or what the hell happened?
Oh, God. That was... I still think Barlow thought that they were up a point.
Yeah.
It's inexcusable not to get a shot up, especially with 5.5 seconds left. Really well done by the Hawks getting there and making the play. But so long left. That's so you can get to the ring. Barlow can get to the ring even.
He had time to take it the full length of the floor.
He did. He passed it in to Rattan Mays, kicked it back over to Barlow because he had a defender on him, and Barlow just stood there.
I know.
And I don't know.
Is it possible that they just really did get the score wrong? Is that possible?
I have no idea. That's really the only explanation that I can think of. Because, there's no way. Barlow had no one in front of him, could have punched it up the court. Tucker was on the weak side. And then you had, I think, Goulding down the line there. But even Barlow running down the court and pulling up even for a three if there isn't enough time left. Sure. That has to happen. There's no way you can't get a shot up.
Yeah.
Tie ball game with 5 seconds to go. So, yeah, that was a bit of a brain fade.
Because of that, how relieved would they have been, even though it took 2 overtimes to end up winning the game?
Yeah, I think very much so. And you could hear it in Rattan May's voice during the post-game little talk he had. Man, he was tough. He was very good.
You remember what you were doing on your 25th birthday, Cody? It probably wasn't hitting the game winner against your old team at Kudos Bank Arena for the Sydney Kings.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was. I couldn't tell you what I was doing, but it certainly wasn't that.
That's what Kawat and I did, and I think he really enjoyed that occasion against the Taipans to have that moment. He's someone that's been a little bit maligned over the years, and his body's let him down for the last 2 years. He's not afraid to talk up a big game, but if he can step up and deliver like that, then he can turn himself into a really good NBL player still.
Oh, he certainly talks the talk, and I think it was a point to go to him because out of the timeout they went to him under the rim. And it kind of got blocked and deflected out. Yep. So that was their plan was to go to him. Yep. And then just defense on the weak side just got caught falling asleep, and Brucey made a really good pass. Yeah. Frozen rope straight across the court under the rim, straight into his hands and cashed it. It was it looked good as soon as it left his hands. So it looked pretty good little birthday present.
Yeah, it was. Fascinated about your thoughts on Keanu Pinder as well. He had another good night against the Kings for the Taipans, but I was fascinated talking to him after the game and listening, and he was asked about the challenge of taking on Xavier Cooks in the Sydney Kings front court, and basically felt like it wasn't a challenge for him because he feels like he's the best big man in the league right now, and I've got no problem with that. I love a guy that's got that confidence, but he also felt like if he didn't foul out with 5 minutes to go in that game, that the Taipans would have won the game. I know Adam Ford, the coach, felt like they blew that game as well. Do you like a player believing in himself to that degree?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. And look, I don't think he's wrong in saying that because he's been, such a big impact on that team and just really their enforcer. And I think you're right. If he's out there, I think it's a different ballgame. I think it's really good, especially coming from a guy who was not getting any time 2 seasons ago and now is probably one of the best big men in the league. Yeah, look, self-belief and self-confidence is a great thing. And, as long as you don't push it too far. Sure. But you certainly need that at the professional level.
All right, Cody, that's a big way to start the show. Let me run through the results that we saw in round 5, and then we can go into things a little bit deeper on some topics and some good and bad things that teams are doing right now. So it started back on Thursday night. Feels like a lifetime ago, but the Brisbane Bullets, the second straight massive win over the Illawarra Hawks, this time at home, 86-61. And then this is an amazing result in Adelaide. New Zealand Breakers against the Adelaide 36ers, 99-70. Not just the fact they won, but that is an incredible scoreline. From an Adelaide point of view, that we expected such big things from. Yep. And then second up on Friday night, we saw a thriller in Perth, and the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix came and got the job done again, 91-90. Then the double overtime game on Saturday, Melbourne United 106-100 over the Hawks. And then that thriller that we talked about with Kawat Noi hitting the winner, the Sydney Kings over the Cairns Taipans 106-103. And then again, the New Zealand Breakers on Sunday 94-62 over the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, another thriller that went to overtime against the Adelaide 36ers 103-98. And lastly, Monday night, Melbourne United 94-77 over the Perth Wildcats. Do you want to start, Cody, with the positives of the New Zealand Breakers or the negatives of how the Perth Wildcats are going right now?
Let's go positive. We've had enough negative already in this show, so let's go positive with New Zealand.
They're playing as a team right now. Sometimes that seems like a given, but it's not always a given. You can tell a team that isn't cohesive as a unit, but we've talked a couple of times on the show now. They're just having fun together. They've clearly bonded. They're playing for their coach. They're playing as a unit. They've bought in defensively. In their 6 games that they won, they've only conceded 66 points a game. And again, we saw this weekend what they did to both Adelaide and Tasmania. They just shut them down defensively, and then they find enough ways to get the job done offensively. I mean, they're playing as a unit. I mean, the best thing I can say about them is that they're just playing as a team, and they've put together a roster that just complements each other so well.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's fun to see, especially after past 2 seasons that they've had to endure. And yeah, look, it's awesome to see. I think New Zealand and Tassie are probably the 2 best defensive teams in the league by a long way.
Yep.
And it shows. Like you said, 66.7 points a game in their wins is huge. To hold teams to that, and then to just, I guess, stem from their defense into their offense. That team is very well suited for that.
Yeah.
And, they're long, athletic. They're all smart players, and you're right. They're all bought in. They're playing for the coach, playing for each other, and just having fun.
Yeah.
They look like they're having more fun than anyone else. And yeah, it really is showing. So I think they've got a legit team, and yeah, right now they're certainly a bit of the surprise packet so far for me.
Sitting on top of the table.
Yeah.
Does that surprise you?
It does a little bit. Look, I didn't think that they were going to be as good as they are this early in the season.
Yep.
So, but it's awesome to see, and again, this is such a defensive league. I think to be good in this league, you have to be a good defensive unit, and it's certainly proving with them on top.
Almost everything you said there is the opposite of what's happening with the Perth Wildcats, unfortunately, right now. We talked about it with Matty Knight last week, and he talked about the concerns he's got, I guess, on and off the court with the team. But he talked about how they have no one on that team that gives them that defensive leadership. And that became even more obvious, I think, this weekend. And they've lost 4 straight games now for the first time since 2018. And some real concerns, because they've now got 2 more tough games this weekend on a short break going into the FIBA window. And the pressure's starting to build.
Yeah, it is. And there's no secret that when the Cats were in their success, that they were the best defensive team in the league, and they were for so long.
Yeah.
And you're right, they just don't play cohesive right now, which is very odd to see a Perth team like that, because that's always kind of what they've hung their hat on. And they're a team full of very quiet guys.
Yep.
And I think there needs to be that leader who is going to be responsible for calling people out, for making sure people are doing the right thing. Not sure who that needs to be. For mine, it probably needs to be Nordo, being that defensive leader out there for them.
It's hard to do it when you don't have that as a natural part of your character, isn't it? Those Tim Conrad talked about it with the Hawks as well.
Yep.
They probably have the exact same issue where they don't have that guy to do it either, and it's just hard to create that person if you don't automatically have them as part of your team.
Oh, for sure. And that's where Kev White, he's one of those guys. It doesn't matter if he's on the court or off the court. He's talking. He's in your ear. He's telling you what's good, what's bad.
I think that's why he and Scott Morrison bonded so well, because he gave Scott Morrison a leader on that team.
Yep, for sure. And there's no secret that teams need that. So yeah, look, it's tough, and it's very odd seeing the Cats like this, because no one's used to seeing them like this. So look, I think massive weekend for them ahead, because like you said, going into the FIBA window, if they drop another 2 or even one of these 2, then there's going to be alarm bells going off if there isn't already.
The elephant in the room is the import situation, and I wanted to compare it. Their 3 imports with the 3 imports from the Breakers, because I think it's an interesting comparison, because I think both teams had the exact same idea when they were putting their 3 imports together.
Yep.
So they both went for a big guy who was a defensively minded big guy who could rebound and give them that presence. And the Breakers have got Derek Pardon, who's doing a fantastic job.
Good job.
And I think Tayshaun Thomas is now doing a pretty good job now that he's getting healthy. They both then went for a scoring-focused 4-man.
Yep.
So the Breakers got Jarrell Brantley, and he's doing a pretty good job. He gives great energy, and he's scoring when he needs to. The Wildcats went for Brady Manick straight out of college, and unfortunately it's not working right now. And then both teams have got that scoring guard as an import. Bryce Cotton, we know, and then Barry Brown's doing a great job with the Breakers. So I think they've got a very similar makeup with the 3 imports. Right now the Breakers are getting perfect service out of their 3. Unfortunately, Brady Manick's the one that's probably sticking out right now. Yeah,
and coming into the season, I thought he was a great pickup. Midway through the NCAA last year, when he was with North Carolina, I was saying how perfect he would fit in the NBL system.
Yeah.
That big stretch 4, can probably play that 5-man if need be a bit undersized, but kind of mobile, but can shoot the hell out of the ball. He just hasn't found his rhythm. You know, he hasn't found his rhythm, whether it's first year out of college, different country, all that sort of stuff. Lots of things come into play, but he just has not found his rhythm. And his body language has been very negative.
And you can understand because he's so down on himself.
For sure.
He would have high standards for himself and he knows he's not delivering. So you understand that, but at the same time, I guess you can't let it show that publicly, can you?
No. And, you know, as a scorer, if your shot's not falling, if you're struggling to find rhythm, you need to find other ways to impact the game, right? And he is letting his offensive woes dictate how he plays.
I think you're right. If he still goes and gets 10 rebounds a game and he only scores 2 points, then it doesn't matter. He's done it. He's at least contributed in the game.
He's done his job.
But what concerned me on Friday night especially was that he struggled to score. He only had 4 points in his 17.5 minutes, but he had 0 rebounds. Yeah. He actually had no stat at all. He had donuts right across the board, which is, I think, the biggest concern.
I think so. And look, the NBL is no joke. It is a legitimate league, and you know you hear Homicide talk about it all the time, saying it's not a cupcake league, and it's not. And you know, I think that it really shows where you are in your basketball career, like where you're playing. You know, I follow guys like one of my teammates at Sydney, Kendrick Perry, right? Yep. He came to the NBL pretty much straight out of college, I believe it was.
I think he still has nightmares about Damien Martin, doesn't he?
Exactly. I think he had about 10 turnovers that game here, and I still remember that vividly. And look, he came into the league and, you know, he had all the tools. You know, he was quick, long, athletic, could shoot. Didn't play very well when he was here, right? Is now in Europe absolutely killing it. You know, he's on the FIBA highlights all the time. He's killing it. I think straight out of college is a tough place to play. Especially if you're a sole focus. So look, I'm not sure how they get him involved or get him into the game more, whether they try and run plays for him. You know, you heard Creaky last night talking about he needs to go into huddles and say, look, run a play for me in a pick and pop. That's tough to do first thing out of college, right? You don't have the confidence to do that yet.
Yeah.
But I think they need to figure out how to get him going because you know, he can be really good in this league. But as an import, you need to show that pretty much straight away, otherwise you're gone. And look, I think they do end up making a move. I think right now he would be the guy that you'd have to move on.
How close to that decision do you think they are? It's obvious they don't have time to do it before their 2 games this weekend. They play on Thursday night, then they've got a trip to Adelaide on Saturday night. But then it's the FIBA window. Is it at a point now where he needs to save his job in the next 2 games?
I think it has to be. And I don't think the Cats management will let the same thing happen as last year in keeping their import around who they don't think is making an impact. So, yeah, look, I think it's a big weekend for him. It's a big weekend for the team, but it's certainly a big weekend for him.
Problem is now they might be competing for the same type of player with Melbourne United. They might be both searching for a very similar new import.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and look, it's that time of year where there's not a whole lot of players going around. Yeah. You know, leagues have started everywhere around the world, and it's tough. So it's going to be a lot of work.
Illawarra Hawks are in a similar situation. They've now lost 6 straight, even though there was better signs against Melbourne when they took it to double overtime. See any hope for them for the rest of this season?
They're struggling. They are struggling big time. Look, like you said about Timmy saying, very similar thing to the Cats, and they don't have that defensive leader or that guy that is willing to call you out if you're not doing the right thing or be that vocal leader. Kev is there, but he looks like he's more on the coaching staff now than anything else. So.
Well, neither Kev or Tim Conrad play on Saturday night.
No, exactly. So, and, you know, it's tough, right? They had a better showing against Melbourne, but
was that less opposition they might have come up against as well?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I don't think Melbourne is at the level they need to be yet either.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look, I think it's a tough one. It is a tough one because, you know, especially with a team like that who probably doesn't have the same funds as a bigger team to try and chase a new import or, you know, try and bring someone else in.
Well, I asked the same question of Maddie last week. Is George King a luxury they probably can't afford to carry for too much longer?
Yeah.
Do they need a bigger body to help Sam Froling?
Probably. I think they probably do. You know, and that's where if they had Harry in there as they did last year.
Who's actually playing really well for Brisbane.
Which is awesome to see, And again, it's part of that. Given the right opportunity, then he can flourish. And so I think he'd be the perfect fit for him because he's that bigger body to go help his brother out. But no, look, I do think they need that bigger body because they are struggling big time.
The team that isn't struggling are the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. Mm-hmm. They've now won 4 straight, and they've done it since they've had their full squad together. And we talked about it last week, and I really like Gary Brown as their point guard. He just gives them that direction, and he finds the shooters, and he looks so calm with the ball in his hands. And I like what he's doing to find his teammates. And Alan Williams is someone that has responded to a slow start, and he's been terrific. Mitch Creek is playing at an MVP level, and I think we'll see Matty Knight probably agrees when we get to his Player of the Year voting later on. And Trey Kell stepped up, played his best game. They've still got Joe Chi, who's still finding his feet, and when he finds his groove, he'll be another weapon for them as well. They're a team that goes. Ryan Brokoff is now playing great as well, and has found his shot. And Kyle Adnam had such a great start. There's so many players on that team. They're so deep, and they're going to be tough to stop.
Oh, for sure. And that was always the question mark coming into the season: is can they stay healthy? Yep. Can they actually get their full roster on the floor? And they have, and there's no reason why they aren't winning these games. They're a tough unit. They've got everything they need. Once they get Joe Chi going, then they're going to be tough to stop, and they become a legit contender all of a sudden. Yeah, I mean it's good to see because they've actually got a full squad. It's you never want to see teams down and out because of injuries and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's good to see, and I think they're a legit force when they do have a full roster. Yeah,
they sure are. I'm interested to get your thoughts on Melbourne United. We touched on them just then, but they won their 2 games this weekend against the Hawks and the Wildcats. And they got Shea Ely back, and I think they instantly looked a better team with him in the lineup. Interesting that they didn't have Jordan Caroline, and I don't think we'll see him again. Whether he gets healthy or not, I think they'll be finding his replacement over the fever window, and we won't see him again. But they'll get Mason Peatling back. But their backcourt now with Radden Mays and Tucker finding his groove, even coming off the bench now as well, and Golding as well. Did you see some better signs from them? Do you think they can still be around the mark if they can stay healthy and get the right fit to replace Caroline?
Yeah, and look, I've been saying it for the past couple of weeks. Once Shea is inserted into that team, they're different. In saying that, I think Rattan Mays has done an unbelievable job. I think he's been really good, kind of their shining light in these past few weeks. You're right, Tucker is now starting to find his game a bit, and he's tough. He's tough. Once he gets going, he's going to be good.
I think he's especially good if he's not the point guard. If he plays as the 2 guard, he's really dangerous.
Definitely. He is bouncy. Goodness me.
Yes.
Some of those dunks over the weekend were ridiculous. So, I think there are better signs from them, definitely. And once Shea gets his feet under him and is really inserted into that lineup, I think they're definitely tough. And you're right, with Jordan Caroline, I think we've seen the last of him in a United jersey. So I would expect them to find someone different.
I think he actually does have a hamstring injury right now. I found that kind of bemusing when they came out and said that.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know what some of these teams do. So it's very interesting.
Fascinated to get your take on the Adelaide 36ers right now. So much talent on that team, but it's individual talent right now.
Yes.
They're not playing as a team just yet, but they've still been able to sneak out a couple of wins, but they're 2-3. I was bewildered when Homicide last week came out and said that their import trio is the best that there ever has been in the NBL ever, and that was 3 games into their life together, and then they go out and lose 2 more games.
Yeah.
What do you make of what you're seeing from them right now?
I think you hit the nail on the head with just 2 individuals right now. I think they can be a lot better than they are, but it all comes down to their ball movement. And, it's very much come down the court, run an on ball, maybe kick it to the second side, maybe run a second on ball, and that's kind of as far as it goes. Yeah. I think they need to be needs to be a lot more movement off the ball for them, getting guys coming off pin downs and turnouts. And if you're scrambling all over the floor, all of a sudden all those guys are legitimate threats. Yeah. And instead of being able to bolster your defense and, sink in the way teams have been doing. And look, I think if they can figure it out, I don't think they're overhyped. No. But I think as of right now, if they're going to continue this way of playing, then yeah, they are. Because Franks isn't hit his stride yet. He's kind of been a bit of a moot point for this team so far.
Even DJ, I think career low numbers for him in Adelaide too.
Yeah, definitely. And those guys need the ball. And being 4 men, they're not going to go and create for themselves. You've seen a couple of times where DJ's got it in the post and he said, "Stuff it, I'm taking it," right?
Yeah.
No surprise, he's gone out and got buckets.
Sure.
Because that's what he's done his whole career. So, but yeah, I think just ball movement needs to be a lot better. You look at even guys like Sunday, who last year I thought was really good for them. This year is kind of taken a backward step. And whether that's because of the guys that they've brought in and he feels like he needs to take that backward step. But no, look, I think if they can figure it out, they'll be tough. But they need to figure it out quickly.
With Cleveland, Sunday and McCarron on the team, I think we thought they might be better defensively than they are right now too.
Yeah, they seem to be that team that tries to just outscore you. Yeah. They don't really try on that defensive end, which is very odd with especially those 3 guys that you've mentioned, because
they gave up 202 points this weekend.
Well, exactly. They're 3 guys that you mentioned are some of the better defenders in the league, and to have them on the same team, but the team not be very good defensively is a bit interesting, and it's certainly something that can't keep trending in that direction, because they'll all of a sudden find themselves not even in the 6.
It sets up an absolutely massive game Saturday night when they host the Wildcats. Can't wait for that one. I think that pretty much wraps up a lot of what we saw in round 5. Cody, did anything else jump out that we might want to touch on before we get to our awards for this week?
No, I don't think so, mate. I think we've touched on everything. It's like I said, it was a heck of a round of basketball. So look, I'm hoping that this round coming is the same.
Okay, it's time for our awards segment here this week on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. And it was a fascinating round 5 of the NBL, as we've just been through with Cody here on the show. Let's get to our awards, because there was plenty of players that put their hands up, but there was one player that stood out. So let's start with our Galen winner for this week, the best team man in the NBL. So this man is the guy who helps his team win a game or games in any weekend, that doesn't necessarily need to be the highest scoring player, doesn't need to necessarily stand out on the box score, but just helps his team win. Similar to what Galen Young did during his playing career, including helping the Perth Wildcats win a championship in 2010. So there was 2 men that, when we were discussing this with Scott Ninnis, who stood out, the Adelaide 36ers legend. So he's the man in charge of this award for this year. And Cody and I are going to catch up with Scott for a more in-depth chat later this week, leading into Saturday night's Adelaide-Perth game, which will be fascinating. So stay tuned for that later in the week. But in terms of the Galen winner, we narrowed it down. Sean Bruce from the Sydney Kings, the 260-game veteran. He was so good in that second half against the Cairns Taipans that he kept Derek Walton, one of the MVP favourites, on the bench for that second half, and he closed the game out, hit some massive shots, and made that winning pass at the end of the game to Courtney. He was outstanding. The other man was Xavier Ratton-Mays, who is in an outstanding patch of form for Melbourne United. His 2 performances this weekend, firstly against the Illawarra Hawks, his old team, 32 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists in that double overtime game, and he was instrumental in his team winning. And then, even more instrumental on Monday night against the Perth Wildcats, he had 25 points, 10 rebounds, 5 steals, 3 assists, just outstanding at both ends of the floor. Just an incredible weekend from the Melbourne United guard, and he, naturally, is our winner of the Galen Award for round 5 here on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. Now, moving on to the Damo Award, the best defensive player in the NBL. The votes are in from the defensive legend himself, Damian Martin, who is happy to help us out here on the show again this year. And his 1 vote for round 5 in the best defensive player award went to Melbourne United young gun David Aquera. Started both games this weekend against the Hawks and the Wildcats. He's got the nod ahead of Jordan Caroline, who's out now and probably won't return. And until a new import arrives, he's holding down that 4 spot very, very nicely. And his numbers might not stand out, but he's having a massive impact. Some of those blocked shots, especially against the Perth Wildcats, were outstanding, and Damian Martin noticed. So he's given him the 1 vote for this week. The 2 votes in the best defensive player award for this week goes to the Sydney Kings big man, Xavier Cooks. Another big game from him against the Cairns Taipans, where he had 18 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. Outstanding game all around for him. And that actually takes him to the top of the leaderboard in the Damo Award for this year. But the 3 votes for round 5, it again goes to Melbourne United's Xavier Radden-Mays, who just goes to show what a massive impact he had this weekend, both offensively and defensively, that Damo noticed him, gave him the 3 votes in the Damo Award. And now when we come back, we'll catch up with Matty Knight for his Player of the Year awards. Okay, back on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle, and I'm with my co-host from last week, Matty Knight. Thanks for joining me again, Matty, and I enjoyed the catch-up with you last week and being able to pick your brain for the full hour. We had some fun background noise with your kids keeping our company. Did you enjoy that experience?
Oh, it was good fun. I really enjoyed getting down and sit and talk about basketball. It was a really good time. Kids especially enjoyed it.
They did. We got a lot of feedback about your comments over the Perth Wildcats and your I guess your frustration over the lack of culture and how they no longer have that defensive bite about them. Boy, did that even become more obvious over this past weekend.
Yeah, no, you can tell they're a team without an identity right now. Obviously, 2 losses, probably should have won the Southeast game, and then last night's game, there's just no intensity on the defensive end. They'd make a run offensively, but Melbourne would just go down and execute whatever they wanted. So it is disappointing to see. What Perth Wildcats were known for is their intensity on the defensive end, and you knew you were in for a dogfight for 40 minutes when you play a Perth Wildcat team. So hopefully they can turn it around, but it'll be otherwise it could be a long season. It's a tough league, and if teams can score at will, you're already behind the 8 ball.
Now, before we get to your votes on the Player of the Year award, thanks to Hoop 7, on the other side of the equation, the New Zealand Breakers, they were your great rivals during your playing career, Matty, and they've got back to that identity that they did have back when they were winning championships. They're playing as a team. They're the best defensive team in the league, and they're winning games, and they've all brought into playing together. They're almost the opposite of what I guess you talked about with how the Wildcats are going right now.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's almost similar to Tasmania last year.
Yeah.
They just got after it on the defensive end and made it hard for opposition. The whole Tassie to 25 points in a half and 64 for the game. That's very impressive. And I think that they're a team with an identity and they know what they stand for, and everybody's bought into their roles.
Yeah.
See Barry Brown come off the bench. He's happy with that. He knows what his role is for that team. Yeah, no, they're playing some really good basketball right now, and it's great to see New Zealand after the last couple of years being on the road and struggling to be playing some really good basketball, and you can just see they're really enjoying their basketball right now. That's from the coach. You just watch his energy on the sideline. He's up and about, jumping around, screaming, and it's contagious, and it flowed all the way down through the team.
You're a famously pretty quiet sort of guy, and you keep your emotions in check, Matty, especially when you were playing. How would you find playing under a coach like Modi, who's so over the top and so energetic, but at the same time, I think he's so good for his players. I think they all love him.
I think most guys would probably love playing under a coach like that. You know, he's got your back. He's got his best interest in you, and you see your coach up and about, makes you want to step up and have that same energy. If your coach can do it, you can do it. So I think that's why he's seen a lot of success with New Zealand so early. And it's crazy. It's his first head coaching gig too, isn't it? He's loving life, it looks like, and that whole organization's loving life right now.
Yeah, they are. I imagine we might see them feature in your votes as well, Matty, but I'm not too sure. We'll get to your votes now thanks to Hoop 7 in the Player of the Year award. Let's start with your one vote. After a pretty fascinating round, a lot of guys stepped up, so you didn't have an easy job this week.
You know, it was a tough one this week. Obviously, when teams play 2 games, one guy might have a really good game one game, and then not so. But I one vote Sean Bruce. He was amazing for Sydney. He in that second half, especially when the import went down, Walton, he really stepped up, and it looks like he's got Buford's trust big time. He's there at the end of the game. He made pass Noy for the game shot, and Sean hit some big shots as well.
Absolutely.
He's playing some really good basketball. He's just getting better as he's aging.
Yeah, I think that's a great pickup. He was absolutely instrumental in that second half, and he was the reason why I didn't even need to go back to Derek Walton down the stretch, because he was playing playing so well. I think that's a great pickup. What about the 2 votes?
2 votes. I'm going with Ryan Brokoff. He, I think the third quarter, Perth played him into form. When Mitch Creek was out, he stepped up big time. I think it was like 12 points in the third quarter or whatnot.
Yep.
And to pull up 3 one-on-one transition, he's obviously playing with a lot of confidence. So, and then next game against Adelaide, he was just as big. He's that big.
4-point play at the end, yeah.
So if he keeps playing like that, South East Melbourne are going to be a very tough team because a lot of firepower on that team already, and you throw Ryan in there, makes them even more dangerous.
Yeah, definitely. Great pickup again, Matty. What about the 3 votes?
3 votes is the big fella from New Zealand, Derek Pardon.
Yep.
Yeah, he was. He's been fantastic for New Zealand. He's really anchored the middle for them, and he was no different against Tassie as well. He almost had a double-double in the first half. It's just, like we said earlier, they're playing their roles and they know what they have to do to help their team succeed, and that was him. He's been very tough, and if he continues to play that way, he'll really help New Zealand.
Yeah, totally agree. I asked Modi Mayor about him after the game on the weekend as well, just because he gives them that just such a presence at both ends of the floor as that big guy, and it just helps everything if you've got that. So I think that's another great observation, Matty. The 4 votes.
Mitch Creek. Yeah, no, he was fantastic again. He's had a really good season. Obviously, had an interrupted pre-season, but he's starting to play himself into some form. And come over here, it's every kid's dream to step up and knock 2 free throws to win a game, and he did it like he's done it a lot of times before. So, like I said about Ryan, you've got Mitch, Ryan, Gary Brown, Trey Tell, big fella, Alan Williams. There's a lot of scoring power on that team, and I think they this year could be their year to really push for a top 4 and maybe make a deep run into the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's amazing that he's doing it, like you said, off that limited preparation, but he's also not 100% healthy right now either. He's still battling a foot injury, and he's not even able to train right now, but he's playing at an incredibly high level. All right, Matty, that leads us to your 5 votes.
He probably had a moment he'd want to forget at the end of the fourth quarter up in Illawarra, but going Xavier Retan-Mays, he had a big weekend. I'm not sure what was going through the mind when Tyler Harvey hit that massive 3, tied it up, and then he dribbled out of the clock. But no, he was massive in the overtimes. And then last night, he just picked apart the Perth Wildcats defense. They had no stop for any chance to stop him. He got to the spots he wanted to get to, and he was massive. I think 25, 10, 5 steals. So he's doing it on both ends of the court as well. 3 assists. So I think now he's got Shea Illy back as well. It's going to take a lot more pressure off him, not having to bring the ball up every time. He can probably get back to playing his normal shooting guard spot. So he had a massive weekend for Melbourne United.
No, he certainly did. Okay, Matty, what that means is that we've got a new joint leader in your award. Mitch Creek's now joint Derek Walden on top of the leaderboard. Are you pretty happy with that? Do you feel like those 2 6 rounds in have probably been the two standouts?
Well, yeah, Derek started very, very well. It's gone a bit quiet lately. Obviously, it's always tough when you've got a lot of good players around. You've got Xavier Cooks, big fella, Tim Suarez.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players around that take those votes off. But and I think Mitch Creek's really playing himself into some form. And, if he continues to play that way and lead South East, like I said, they can do some damage coming into the year.
No, for sure. All right, Matty, it's been fun picking your brain once again. Thank you for your votes, and we'll do it all again next week.
Thanks, Pikey.
Okay, I'm back with Cody on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. Let's take a quick look back at those Player of the Year award votes from Matty Knight, Cody. There were some big performances this week, but I have a feeling he did a pretty good job.
He did. I think he nailed it. Retan-Mays was unbelievable this weekend, and it led to 2 big wins for United. And going down the list, Mitch Creek, Derek Pardon, Ryan Brokoff, and Sean Bruce, all very deserved vote getters this week. There were some other decent performances around the league, but I find it very hard to replace any of those guys that he's mentioned there. So certainly Nailed it this week.
No, good job, Matty. All right, Cody. Massive week now coming up in the NBL, and it's the last weekend before the FIBA window. So I feel like this is a make or break time for a lot of teams, but also for players that, like we talked about before, if you're Brady Manick, if you're George King, or if you're players that are struggling a little bit, this is the weekend to play well, because over the FIBA window, the teams have got a chance to sit back and reflect a little bit and potentially make some changes. So massive weekend to come, and it starts on Thursday night back in the Wynn Entertainment Centre in Wollongong. And the Illawarra Hawks have had a little bit of time to try to regroup after Saturday night's loss to Melbourne in double overtime, and on the back of those, 3 straight losses by a combined 77 points. The Adelaide 36ers, though, like we talked about before, they arrived with a bit of a chip on their shoulder. They've lost their last couple in a row as well, and they would be seeing this as a chance to try to get their move started and try to find some confidence.
Oh, for sure. And massive game for both teams. Both trying to find their way a bit still, like we've mentioned, and it's a tough one. Especially on a Thursday night, the stadium probably isn't going to be rocking the way it usually is.
Like it was on Saturday night. On Saturday night, it was.
Yeah, exactly. On the weekend, it's a lot easier to have the families come out and get that place rocking. But on a Thursday night, it's a bit more quiet, and so it's going to be tough. But look, I think at the end of the day, Adelaide's just got a bit too much talent for the Hawks on this one, and I think they get that.
You feel like it's time for that front court. Do you try to get Daniel Johnson and Robert Franks to have a big night, because that front court's probably not the strength of the Hawks?
Oh, you have to. They have to start doing something. They have to be involved more, I think, is probably the big thing. And realistically, I think it's probably the game to do it. You've got Sam Froling in there who can hold his own defensively, but that's about it, really. I think he can, especially those two guys, can go at the rest of the Hawks bigs and try to get their groove back.
You thought that game had a lot riding on it. Take a look at the next one. Perth Wildcats on that 4-game losing streak, back at home to host the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, who had been so good. They had a down day on Sunday over in Auckland against the New Zealand Breakers, so they'll be fired up to bounce back as well. Boy, Cody, what are your thoughts on this one?
Oh, massive game, and it's an interesting one because RAC Arena all of a sudden isn't the fortress that it used to be.
Yep.
Teams come in here with confidence now, and it's not something that we're used to seeing.
No.
Not something that the league's used to seeing. I think it's improved in the past few home games they've had, but probably not quite as packed out as it usually is, and
it probably won't be on a Thursday night again.
No, 100%, and probably not as loud as it usually is. And don't get me wrong, the place is usually still rocking, I'm sure, but from what we're used to, I think. Yeah, this is a tough one because, like I said earlier, I think Tassie is probably the second best defensive team in the league, if not first. So it's going to be a challenge for the Cats, definitely. But,
How much pressure is there on the Wildcats coming to this game? And can they turn it into a positive? Or is it something that just jumps on your back and it's hard to carry?
No, look, I think that if any team can use that as a positive, I think it's the Cats. And I think with their core group that they've got, I think they know what it takes. I think it's just producing it on the floor is the big thing for them. So, look, I just think the way Tassie's been playing, a bit of an anomaly against New Zealand, but New Zealand's the hot team in the league. I think Tassie get this one. But I'm hoping we see a bit of an emergence of Brady Manick. It would be really good to see, and I think this could certainly be the game for him to do that.
What does the Red Army sound like at the end of this game if they do lose? Do you start to hear some
moans and groans
as the team's walking off the floor?
Look, I think you probably do. It's something that Wildcats fans haven't really had to deal with in a long, long time. Yeah. So
even last year, it was only to the last second that they missed the playoffs. Until then, I think everyone still thought they were going to make it.
Yeah, for sure, including us.
Yeah.
Look, I think it's a tough one. Perth fans are used to success. You even go to the footy, with West Coast and now Freo. Yeah. They're used to success. Yeah. So for a team to been so successful in the past to now be on this little bit of a slide.
And I think there's always been a great correlation between Wildcat supporters and West Coast supporters. Yeah. I think there's always been that crossover.
Very much so. Very much so. I think if they do drop this one, I think you're right. I think there will be some moans and groans as the team walks off the floor. which obviously doesn't help. It doesn't help the players and anything like that.
No, because no one's going out there trying to lose.
No, not at all. Absolutely not. And, you know, it's such a proud history in the Cats that, you know, it's tough to uphold. So, yeah, massive game for them.
Mm-hmm. One game on Friday night, but it's going to be a beauty. The Cairns Taipans back at home, where they fascinatingly haven't won still so far this season. They take on Melbourne United, who, as we talked about, are starting to build some momentum and starting to get some bodies back too.
Yeah, they are. They've had some massive games, and on the back of return mates, like we mentioned before. And with Shea Ely inserted into the team, I think it probably gets the ball out of his hands a bit more. But I think he can just be just as effective for Melbourne. Cairns coming off probably what should have been a win for them, you know, like they would have expected. They probably thought that they should win that game. They'll be coming in with something to prove. I think Cairns probably need to reward their fans with a win at home. So, look, I think Cairns get that one, but I think it's a lot closer than what we thought it would have been.
Taipan's front court dominated the last time these two teams played, and I think potentially with Keanu Pindas, Sam Wardenberg, DJ Hogan, and Majuk Deng backing them up, I think potentially that's the best front court in the league.
Yeah.
And it's probably not the strength of Melbourne right now. They've got Isaac Humphries, but you know, Dave Barlow, David Aquera, and until their new import comes in, it's not their strength. So that could be where the Taipans really can get on top.
Oh, for sure. And look, I think Humphries has been really good for them this year. I think he's stepped up big time. Aquera was really good against the Cats.
Yeah.
He didn't stuff the stat sheet, but he impacted that game massively.
The block shot on a driving Bryce Cotton.
That was massive. And just his activity, I think, was huge for Melbourne. And you know, his confidence is obviously sky high right now. But yeah, look, Dave Barlow seems that little bit step behind, and his elbow seems to be bothering him still a little bit. But with his expertise out there, it's always tough. But look, the Taipans just have youth, athleticism, and just a want. So I think you're right. I think that that's probably going to be where they are going to look to exploit.
2 more games on Saturday. Tough one for the Tasmania Drake Jumpers. Short turnaround coming back from Perth on Thursday night, but they're at home against a Brisbane Bullets team who, all of a sudden, very fresh, having had more than a week in between games, and also coming off those 2 wins against the Illawarra Hawks.
Yeah, and look, right now, I think Brizzy will take wins wherever they can get them. You know, I think that probably not the best opponents, but a win's a win, right? You can only play who's in front of you.
And they did it by 60 points pretty much between the 2 games.
Well, they did, and they actually looked a lot better. Right? So they looked a lot better. Obviously, big congrats to my guy Jace Kadee on 350. That's huge. You know, especially considering lots of people, including himself, I'm sure, thought his career was going to be ended a lot sooner.
It almost never started with the car accident he had.
So, you know, for him to come out and be playing 350 is huge. So I'm proud of him for that, and big congrats.
He's also probably been their best player so far this season.
Yep, I think so. I think he's been that level head for them, and it's really good to see. It's really good to see because you know he is unbelievable player, but also an unbelievable human being. So it's really good to see. This is a tough one for them, but look, I think with the short turnaround, for the Jack Jumpers, I think Brisbane get this one. Yeah, it's a tough one, but I think Brizzy get up for it. It's a big test for them playing against a legit opponent.
This next one is going to be quite the one to watch, and the ramifications could be significant, depending on especially what happens between them both on Thursday night, if Adelaide is coming off a win or a loss, and same with the Perth Wildcats. But the 36 is at home to the Wildcats, the 2 oldest rivals in the league, and the ramifications, like I said, will be significant, and there's a lot riding on this game. And if there's been one game I advise you to not miss this whole season, I think it's this one.
Yeah, I think so. And look, I think you'll be seeing some players fighting for their life in this one. And look, for Adelaide, I think coming up against a Perth team who hasn't found its identity on defence yet will be a bit of a confidence booster for them. It's going to be tough to see who guards DJ and Franks because...
Well, Brady Manning has to guard one of those two.
Yeah, has to. And you know, we've seen it a few times this season where teams have gone at him, right? He's not quite as quick laterally as some of the other bigs around the league, and these are 2 guys you need to stay in front of.
Yeah.
But 2 guys that you need to be able to stretch out to the 3 at guard because they're legitimate threats from out there. So, look, I think the Cats need to put together probably the best defensive effort of the year. Oh, jeez. That's a tough one.
But last time Adelaide played at home, they lost by 29 points. They're not going to want to do that again.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I mean, there's just so much riding on it because especially if the Wildcats have lost on Thursday night, there's so much at stake.
Yeah. Jeez. It's a big time flip of the coin for this one for me. Jeez. I don't like picking against the Cats twice, even though they're on a 4-game skid right now. Oh, I reckon the Cats get that. I reckon they figure it out defensively, and I think they get that one.
Again, you might hear the same rumblings inside Adelaide Entertainment Centre than you would then from RAC Arena on Thursday night, because 100%. This Adelaide team had a lot of expectations.
Oh, they did. You go over and beat an NBA team, you're going to come back with lots of expectations, and even just the team that they've put on the floor, I think, should be top of the ladder right now.
Yep.
They've got all the pieces that that need to be successful, including defensive guys, and it's just not clicking for them. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. Very interesting game.
Sure will. So will this. First up on Sunday, well, both these games on Sunday, but it starts in Auckland. The New Zealand Breakers, the league-leading New Zealand Breakers, their first and only game of this weekend, up against the defending champion Sydney Kings, also playing their only game of the weekend. Gee, this is a cracker too.
Massive game, and this one's going to be exciting. And, Abercrombie's return, hopefully that does actually happen.
Yes. What sort of ovation does he get
massive,
from the crowd?
Big standing ovation, I think. Long-serving captain of the club now, and just, I think what he's done for that club, even just the league in general, has been unreal, and it's good. It's going to be good to see him back on the floor, and I'm sure the Breakers fans are going to be elated to see him back on the floor. And
the most amazing thing is they're already the best defensive team in the league, and he's probably their best defensive player.
Yeah, I think he's certainly up there. So it'll be interesting to see how he slots into that. And, it's going to be an exciting game. And I think again, another tough one. I think the Breakers get up there at home. The return of their leader, I think there's a lot riding on that one for them, and I think they get it.
And then to close the round and to close this little first segment of, I guess, the NBL season before the fever break, it's the first throwdown of the season. Melbourne United against the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. No love lost between the two teams, but Melbourne will be pretty wary. They've had a tough schedule lately. The Southeast Melbourne Phoenix will be fresh and coming in on a 4-game winning streak. How do you see it?
Tough one. Very tough one. And, Melbourne coming off a Friday night game in Cairns is going to be tough. And you're right, Southeast with their first game of the round. Full squad, full week of practice under their belt. I think they'll come in ready and raring to go. I think right now, Phoenix are probably playing better basketball, even though United has stepped it up a bit. I think Southeast get that one. And finish off this first little part of the season with a bang. So hopefully it's a good game.
Yeah, going into the break with a 5-game winning streak would be a nice way to do it. So that's how round 6 is looking, Cody. Thanks to Hoop 7 for making this show possible. There was plenty to get through. I hope you all enjoyed getting our thoughts on what's happening in the world of the NBL. Thank you to Hoop 7 for bringing the show to you. We'll be back next week during the fever break to go through everything that we saw in round 6, talk about the ramifications, and talk about the Boomers games that will be played in the fever window next weekend as well, Cody. But I'll wrap it up there and leave you with the final thoughts.
Man, hopefully we can see a few more overtimes this weekend, because this weekend just gone is going to be tough to beat, but there's certainly some crackers coming up this weekend. So look, lots on the line for some players, some teams, but we'll see how all that goes.